right, everybody. Thank you for joining me again tonight. It's 2 days before Thanksgiving, so work starts to slow down and family starts to come over, and you go to visit family and girlfriends and Thanksgiving dinners and all that good stuff. And the modeling kind of gets put in the back burner there for a little bit. But then in the evening, you discover you have all sorts of time, or in the morning or in the day, to work on your model. So I anticipate a lot of videos from everybody coming out in bunches during these next few days, including myself. You saw the little short video I did the other day and posted on YouTube, kind of like a teaser type thing. This is where we're at as far as our Freightliner build is concerned. This is going to be a two-part video. I'm going to keep the two parts kind of short, but they're going to be loaded, especially the first half, with a lot of information of how I got to this point or what I'm doing here, including all metal fabricated by me, from bumpers. This is just a temporary mock-up. We're going to have an all metal visor for the Freightliner. Of course, our see-through grill, where I got a lot of hints from BNR's videos. We have some issues with the headlights that we're going to address, and I'll share that with you, along with a few other things I have already done. Pretty much what you're seeing is the bumper is put on here temporarily. I'm still going to be working on that for a while. It's kind of like a mock-up right now. This is not going to be the visor we're going to be using, but it's on there temporarily as a mock-up. Same with the headlights, the grill and stuff. But it gives you an idea where we're going with this guy, where we need to be. And the look I was trying to achieve. And if you go back and look at the video of our prototype running around down in Austin, Texas, it's got the visor set up like this. It's a weird setup. I just kind of goofed up on the sides here. This was just a temporary. Let's just get us straight into the video. The first half of the video, we're going to cover topics, little things we did, tips, problems, issues with what you see here in front of you. The second half of the video, part 2, I'd like for you guys to watch it. I did something with the cab, and it was a pleasant surprise. I've never done it before. I've seen guys do it on armor models. I did it on my cab, and it changed the overall look on the cab. It does look different than it did before. There are some changes, and I'm going to point them out and get into great detail on the second part of this video. I'm going to be posting both of them tonight. It's a lot to take in, I know, but trust me, just let them play as they're playing in the background. You have your morning cup of coffee. A lot of good info on there for you. Let's go straight into what we're doing here. Let's start from the back and work our way forward. So, as you can see, we already went ahead and attached our chains. This is a great suggestion from Tom Klein, who's one of our great YouTube contributors and viewers, and full of knowledge in terms of heavy equipment and their usage. And actually, I saw a video at work today on YouTube on this very topic here, and the guy laid down a perfect, evenly gravel top road on his property on some farm, using the method that Tom described with these two chains on the side. It was fantastic. It was a great video, and just thank you for that, Tom. I really appreciate that, like always. In addition, what we did here, we went ahead and put this big backing plate. In this case, we had originally made it out of metal, and we had attached some oversized tow hooks on there. We went ahead and found more appropriate size brass tow hooks. We attached them on by soldering them onto a now brass plate, and we actually installed a little towing hitch or pinto, whatever it's called. Our particular Freightliner down in Austin, Texas, only comes with one mud flap, and it appears like it's a Freightliner mud flap, so that's what we did here. Using the AMT kit, we used one mud flap with the AMT Freightliner logo on there, and one mud flap only. Only difference we did here is we sanded the daylights out of it and made it real thin as opposed to how they come out of the box. And to me, it improved the overall look of the AMT provided Freightliner mud flap. Let me go ahead and zoom in for you guys so you can see what I was showing, what we just covered. So they're working tow hooks. This is actually a plastic tow hook or pinto off of one of my Forces of Valor 132nd scale GMC Army trucks, U.S. Army trucks. We just go ahead and relieved it of its tow hook and put it on our Freightliner dump truck. If anyone's noticing why my dump bed works so flawlessly, it's because the dump doors work so flawlessly. It's because this is not the original provided plastic dump door. This is a solid brass double sheet, heavy sheets door with beefed up hinges so I could get the correct type action off of it each and every time. And it makes the model weigh a ton, but it improves the overall look and the function, and I love the weight on the models. Let's go back to where we've been working. On our wheels, remember each wheel with its own model, where it had its own color, its own weathering, its own details, and I mix and match tire treads. I basically used Scenes Unlimited tires on every single one of the tires on our dump truck here. I used Scenes Unlimited rims and mixed with AMT Freightliner rims to match our prototype, and the mix match of rims and tires that are on the actual prototype. I went ahead and modeled them here, including the correct painting, the weathering. Also, another idea I got from B&R was the little air stems, the little air valve stems. You can barely see one there. We went ahead and attached our fuel tank. So that's on there now. We'll do weathering to it down the road. We'll add the fuel cap down the road also. I still have to figure out the hydraulic lifting cylinder for our dump. It'll go right there for our dump bed, but that's probably the next project I'll do this weekend, this Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to do a whole tutorial on how to fill in the seam and rivets, and more simplified, easy, affordable, hardly any skills that any modeler can apply to their Freightliner projects. And or you could do it the complicated, real prototype way, which I've done in the past. And I'm going to show you all the options that are available to you that you can do, and I'll show you the steps. We're actually going to do the steps here on my YouTube channel. They're going to be long, boring videos, but they're going to be extremely helpful, especially for those who are just barely getting into the hobby and are daunted by that subject, not knowing that they bought a Freightliner kit, and to make it look decent, halfway decent, they got to take care of that issue. But the days of fear and the complications as far as that's concerned are over, and I'm going to show you the steps I'm going to be using, and hopefully they help you out too. Let's go ahead and drop the dump bed down. Also, what I did here, and this will come off, I got to fix it up a little better. I went ahead and added that canvas cover that used to stretch back here. It's tore off on our prototype down in Texas, so we tore it off here just to model how it looks now. What we did go ahead and do on this guy here is we installed the batteries and the battery holder right there. Now the batteries are from AMT. think this may be off their GMC. They got like a cab over kit. I'm not even showing you guys how that looks. So they're removable. We'll weather them up, paint them, and paint the cables and all that good stuff. And then for our bracket there, we went ahead and fabricated one using the metal pieces we've been using from that lacquer thinner gallon can. We still got pieces left, and we went ahead. Not only, if you followed this build series from the beginning, we build the dump side out of that same can material. We built the portions of the end, these extenders, the front bumper, the metal bumper that's attached to this model, which we'll cover right now in a second, the front visor, and this cab protection or cab awning, whatever you want to call it, is also made from the same material. Usually I do that out of brass or similar type metal. I have tons of that metal here in the shop. But in this case, I wanted to show that we're going to build a world-class, beautiful model. Very simple steps using very simple materials that can be found around the house. So it doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of fancy, crazy, secret tools or anything like that. Just your basic cutting files and stuff like that. If you know how to solder, cool. If not, you can always tack it together with CA glue or make it out of styrene. I was originally going to make it out of styrene, but we'll pop it off here down the road in the future. We'll weather it and fix it up and detail it and then paint it black and reattach it back onto the model when we get a chance. So, just weird little things I like to do like that. If you guys remember, I needed to have this model with front steerable axles, because every time I think of the Freightliner running around down in Texas, I picture it in my mind performing the donuts it's doing, just non-stop donuts. And I always picture it in my mind with the front wheels cocked or turned like that. So to me, it was very important to have front steering axles, which we went ahead and put on the model. Once again, we'll go ahead and cover that that visor. I didn't know how I was going to use a plastic visor that comes with the AMT kit. I didn't like it, and it didn't quite. The real one on the video, it obviously is made out of aluminum. It's obvious about 100 miles away to any blind man. So the AMT did not meet that requirement in my eyes. So I went ahead. I just got a scrap piece of aluminum that had dents and stuff in it. As you can see right there, grooves and dents everywhere. I didn't actually measure it, exact measurements. I kind of just eyeballed it to see what all is going on here. How does it look one way in the video, but the one AMT provided looks a different way. And I couldn't figure it out, so we used this for practice. I finally figured it out. It's the exact same. This is the one that we're really going to attach to the model once we're done. And it is measured to where it's supposed to be. This is actually a straight piece of aluminum. The trick is to get that look that's on the one in the video. The trick is to install it with the groove towards the cab like that, front edge straight, but to put that bend in there. You see that bend, how it goes like that? You put that slight bend in there, you drop that sucker down, and now you have the look just like the one running around down in Austin. So I was even thinking of keeping this one. I like the banged up grooves and stuff, and I may wind up doing that, but I gotta work on it a little bit more. Right now it's just on there as a mock-up, just for looks. I usually put a tiny drop of CA on each end, and then when I'm done, I'm ready to get to it, I just pop it off, clean up the CA, and do whatever I have to do. We covered the grill work from the last video. As you can see, I have replaced the center portion of metal, which on the other video I did the other day, it was way too wide. So I replaced it with a real tiny thin piece of metal, and it gives it that correct look it's supposed to have. The part that extends down here in this area, I thought it was a different type of material. This video is, yeah, we're gonna end it here in about 5 minutes. It's not. It's actually the same material as your grill. It's continued downwards, except it's not connected to the grill. It's separated here by another piece of metal, a very thin piece of metal, kind of like this one, maybe a little thicker. Because the reason being, the cab has to flip forward, and it can't be connected to that piece of metal as one big unit. It won't be able to flip forward like that. So they split it right about here, and they attach it on the bottom portion. I think I discussed, and I did discuss this opening here that comes with the AMT kit is way too wide, so I'm going to close it a little bit more. It should be a little, not as wide. There you can see my hinges that we worked on the other night that drove us crazy. There's our bumper, our metal bumper. This metal bumper was driving me nuts. I could not figure it out, and I resigned myself to using the plastic one until I was in bed, and I came to me in a dream where I was having issues, guys. If I may share this with you, if you guys have a minute, you can see it better in this one, right there. In order to get the folds and the bends to match the real one that's running around down in Texas, you have no choice but to cut very thin lines there, and there, in order to do the bending that you have to do, in order to get it correct. Otherwise, you wrinkle the metal and ruin it. You'll never get it. In order to do these cuts, you're going to have to use your finest cutting disc, which I have. And that still wasn't good enough. Keep in mind, when you cut the metal with this fine cutting disc, the groove you're going to leave there is going to be not only the size of this, but actually wider than this, because none of these are straight. They all wobble. So you almost double the width here. I even have more finer cutting disc and wheels. And I still couldn't get it. I got it pretty thin, but you could see those grooves. You could bend the bumper to the correct shape, but what do you do about those big giant open grooves? Well, what I finally stumbled upon in my dream was to, I remember, keep in mind this bumper is made out of the same material from that gallon lacquer can. This bumper, this metal, this bumper is made out of this. If I were to pop off this bumper, and I probably will, it's just temporarily held on there, you would see the underside, the backside is blue like this with all the lettering from the lacquer company, or the company that produces that lacquer. So I love the idea of using these pin heads for the rivets. I haven't mastered that technique yet. I'm still practicing here. But I am going to go with the metal bumper. Actually, I'm going to use this one. And what I did is my solution was to drop, using my resistance soldering unit, I went ahead and poured a bunch of solder in to that joint. In some cases, I had to put a metal backing behind it so the solder wouldn't seep through. But in most cases, with the solder, there's four cut marks I had to fill in with solder on this bumper. 2 on each end, one here, one down here, one over there, and one up there. So, and that worked. You know, I had a glob of solder here, so using files, polishing sticks, emery board, anything and everything, steel wool, I was able to smooth that, round it to match what it would look like coming out of the factory, polish it, and it came off fantastic. So I am going to use metal bumpers on my, this metal bumper on my Freightliner. I'll just clean that up before I install it. Same thing with the visor. I think I'm going to use this visor only because it was the first one, the first attempt, and it changed the whole look of the Freightliner unit here. And to me, something about loyalty. I don't care if you're an ugly pig or biggest slob, or well, and just something about loyalty with me. If and I apply that to everything. It's dumb to say, even if it's an old beat up hammer, if it's been with my family and it's done the job, that's the hammer I'm going to use, even on the toughest jobs or the job I'm trying to impress somebody with. It's just the way I've always operated. My parents instilled that in me for some reason, and that's just the way I am. So something about this visor, the bumper, but mainly that visor, and other things. Just if you win, if your loyalty wins me over, we're going with you 100%. Real quick on our headlights before we end this video, take an intermission and start part two. Well, here, let's see if so you can see those headlights pop out way too much, which we knew going into this that was going to be the case. So I went ahead already and started to sand off the back of it a little bit, and they still stick out way too much. The outside sits more narrower than the backside. The backside sticks out a little further. So if I start cutting too much, then it's going to be obvious, and the groove I cut in the body to fit this headlight is not going to be too big for the new piece, the resulting new piece. So I would have to narrow that back hole in order to make the front look decent. Remember, you can't take any material off the front because you're going to fit a lens that already fits in there off of AMT. So your cutting has to come from the back. So we're going to pop these off. They're only held on there temporarily for the videotape purposes, like everything else on here. We're going to sand these suckers down on our belt sander. And what's going to result is you're going to have a big opening here in the sheet metal of the body of the cab. What you do using, you saw I mentioned it, and I may have showed it briefly in one of my last videos. You use some sort of styrene strip like this. Pop off that eyeball, and you wrap it around that hole, and that narrows that hole, that opening. If you still need to narrow it more, grab a second one of these and glue it on there around in a circle. And then when everything's all dry, you come back, you cut it flush with the body with a razor, and then you smooth it off with a sandpaper or a sanding stick. Put some Bondo in there for any of the grooves and gaps and stuff, because you're going to have a little bit of them. And then come back and file it clean, and that closes that opening. So now your front headlight will fit in the appropriate opening in the sheet metal without having to do any major drilling holes or tearing this guy apart. It sounds silly. When I get to it, I'm gonna videotape it so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I've already done it when I messed up the hole on this one, and you can't even tell. Right now, as you can see, when the crazy glue was drying, or the CA glue, it drooped down. So that tells me automatically when I take off more material off the back, that opening there, it's going to be even more noticeable only all around. So yeah, we're going to have to use those strips to close that hole down. It's a piece of cake. Do not panic. Do not think you ruined the model, because you didn't. We've already covered this, but I'm going to cover it in greater detail now to both headlights. And we'll get them fitting in there. I guarantee there is nothing in model building you guys should be fearing. Those days are over. And to prove it, this part two, let's take an intermission. Why don't we go ahead and take a break? Why don't you guys head on over to the John, or go buy a Coke or a cup of coffee, go over your car, check your emails, text your girlfriend, whatever you got to do. I'm going to go stretch out, maybe run around the block a couple times, do some jogging. And we'll meet back here in about 25 minutes after intermission. Part two is very interesting, resulting something I came across with the cab that I applied here. We'll talk about it in not so great detail. Won't be as long as this part one, but come on back for part two.